She was humiliated, despised, and called weak. But when everyone disappeared, only her name was on the list of survivors. No one believed her, until the base radio announced a single voice asking for rescue, that of the poor girl. If this gave you goosebumps, subscribe now, because there are more real stories like this coming. It all started on a rainy morning, when a truck with recruits stopped in front of the gate of a military training base. Among the young men, their faces as hard as steel, a petite girl got out of the back of the truck, dressed in worn-out boots, a jacket that didn't match the rest of the car. She had bright, uncertain eyes and gestures full of tension. Her name was Lena. Everyone knew she came from the poorest neighborhood, that her mother cleaned for officers, that she had no father, that only thanks to some social initiative had she been given the right to join the training. On the first day, a wall could be felt between her and the rest. "Why did you come here?" one of the guys asked her contemptuously. The others laughed as she stumbled on the obstacle course. They whispered to each other, "She'll be the first one to drop out." Even the corporal leading the group made no secret of the fact that he treated her as ballast. In his eyes, she wasn't a soldier. She was a mistake on the paperwork. But Lena didn't say a word. She didn't explain. She didn't beg. She was the first one up every day. She washed the floors before the others could get off their bunks. She trained after dark, while the rest of us rested. No one noticed. No one helped her. But fire was forming in her eyes, not anger, but determination. She knew no one would give her a chance, so she decided to create one herself. She was lonely, rejected, ignored. But it was from this loneliness that a strength that no one expected would be born. A week into training, the first field test day arrived. The recruits were to undergo a nighttime rescue simulation with a compass, a gas mask, and a survival kit. Most of the guys were excited. The competition, the adrenaline, the challenge, that was their cup of tea. Lena was silent, tying her shoes, the soles of which were already starting to come unglued. No one asked if she had everything. One of the guys threw over his shoulder, "Be careful not to get lost in the forest, poor girl." The laughter was loud, as if everyone was waiting for an opportunity to humiliate her. Even the instructor raised an eyebrow and said ironically, "Maybe don't come back. There will be less work with the report." They began. The darkness was thick as tar. Each of them was given a different route. Lena walked slowly but precisely. She counted her steps, checked the position of the stars, memorized sounds. When one of the guys panicked and returned to base with a cut leg and another lost his compass, Lena was still on the route, invisible, silent, unnoticed. At 4 in the morning, as the first light broke through the trees, Lena emerged from the forest with a complete survival kit carried on her back. She was breathing heavily, but unharmed. She was one of 3 to complete the mission in full. As everyone gathered in front of the base, tired and puzzled, the corporal looked at the list and raised his head. "Lena Nowicka," he said in disbelief. First across the finish line, there was silence. Those who had been laughing now looked on with a mixture of surprise and irritation, but Lena just nodded. She didn't need applause. She already knew that she was stronger than anyone thought. After the night of simulation, Lena gained something she hadn't planned for: attention. But it wasn't admiring, respectful attention. It was piercing, suspicious, irritating attention. The classmates who had ignored her before began to look at her as a threat. "Why her?" they whispered, when she thought she hadn't heard. "She's just a poor girl. She has no right to be better than us." One of the recruits, an officer's daughter, arranged an innocent accident. Lena found her clothes strewn about after a shower, her shoes soaked in water, and her coat cut in the back. When she reported this to her commander, he only shrugged. "Welcome to the army. Toughness begins with such tests." She couldn't complain. There was no mother to intercede, no father with influence. She had to fight on her own. She started getting up earlier, training longer, studying at night when the rest were asleep. She had only one thing: determination. and that was starting to scare them. In the next tactical test, Lena drew up a plan that surprised even the instructor. When her team defeated their opponents in the simulation thanks to her leadership, some began to whisper, "She didn't come up with this idea. Someone had to help her." But no one found any evidence, because it was just Lena. Poor girl. Only in their eyes, she was starting to become dangerously capable. After a week of silent attacks and hidden resentment, Lena was falsely accused of equipment sabotage when a colleague, who had previously made fun of her plain clothes and ripped shoes, planted electronic components from a tactical kit that had supposedly disappeared from storage in her locker. She was summoned to the commander's office. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" he asked harshly, without a shred of empathy. "It's not mine," Lena whispered. But she had no ID. Her face was trembling, but not from fear, from hurt. She was suspended from duty and removed from team drills. She was reassigned to janitorial duties, sweeping driveways, mopping floors. Those who had once ridiculed her now laughed even harder. "Look, he's going back to what he does best, cleaning," someone from the platoon shouted. But Lena didn't cry. She was silent. At night, after her shift was over, she would sit with a flashlight and study military strategy on her own, studying maps, orders, protocols. She knew that the truth would come out, and that suffering estaba a construíla. One night, a tactical command instructor noticed her alone, analyzing maneuvers from a real operation 10 years earlier. "Where did you get that?" "From the archives. I wanted to understand the mistakes of that mission." He looked at her differently. For the first time, without warning, because that poor girl, broom in hand, had the mind of a commander. Since that night, Lena had become invisible only in appearance. She was no longer part of the official training, but every step she took was a step towards something bigger. She would get up before the wake-up call, run alone along a designated route with weights, as if she was still in formation. In the evenings, she practiced grenade-throwing accuracy with improvised weights and used cans. She no longer had a uniform. Everything had been taken from her except the work coveralls she wore, even when the sun burned her arms. But she wore them with pride. The coveralls had become her armor, a testament to the fact that her dignity had been stripped, but her spirit had not been crushed. In the mess hall, people looked away. Not because they couldn't see her anymore, but because they were beginning to see something they hadn't understood before. Power. "I saw her again today at 5. She was running around the square by herself with a tire," whispered one of the recruits. "She didn't give up," replied another. The rumors grew, and with them the respect. Quiet, unspoken, but real. One day, when one of the novices fainted during gas mask exercises, it was Lena, the removed, useless girl, who ran in with a fire extinguisher, cut his belt, and carried him out of the smoky hangar on her back. Everyone watched. No one moved. In the evening, when she returned to the cleaning ladies' barracks, there was a letter waiting on her bunk. No sender. One sentence. "Don't stop. Someone sees this." And then, for the first time in weeks, Lena smiled. The next day, Lena worked as usual, mopping mud from the corridor, changing the sheets, enduring laughter in silence. But something had changed. The officer on duty no longer looked away as he passed her, and one of the captains, known for his tough attitude towards recruits, stopped by her and said only, "Thank you for yesterday." No smile, no explanation. But Lena felt as if someone had opened a door for her, not wide open yet, but no longer closed. That night, she got another message. This time, it wasn't a card. She found a package under her bed, tactical boots, a new belt, and an unused battalion patch. There was no caption, but Lena knew. Someone from above was watching. Someone who hadn't forgotten that a true soldier isn't the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who keeps fighting even when no one is watching. Soon, she was given an order, unofficially. She was to prepare a report on the status of the base from the support staff. It was a test. a task that would never normally be given to someone invisible. For 2 days, Lena conducted observations, talked to cooks, cleaners, mechanics. She created something that resembled a small defense strategy, seen through the eyes of those whose opinion was not asked. When she handed back the report, handwritten, carefully folded, the major looked at her for a moment and said, "You surprised me, soldier." Soldier. The word sounded like a medal. And Lena felt that she was slowly returning to the path that was meant for her, maybe not in the traditional way, maybe not in a uniform like the others, but she was getting closer to the center, where the decisions were made, and no one could deny anymore that the poor girl had something in her that they didn't teach in the exercises. Though she was still officially just support staff, something about Lena began to change. No more laughter could be heard as she passed in the hallway. Even those who had previously looked away or made sarcastic remarks now watched with curiosity and sometimes concern. A new topic of whispers appeared in the base: Lena's report. The soldiers began to ask, did the shoeshine girl really do this? Apparently, her plan even took into account the blind spots at the gates. Some couldn't understand it, others didn't want to. But the fact was indisputable. Someone from above noticed her. And on top of that, someone wanted to give her another chance. One day, during an afternoon briefing, Lena was called into the tactical room. She entered hesitantly. Her hands still smelled of detergent, and her clothes were soaked in dust from the warehouses. In the center stood Major Cossack, the same one who received her report. "We have studied your analysis. It is thorough, creative, and extremely honest." He fell silent, looking her straight in the eyes. "I have a proposition for you. Tomorrow we're going on a rescue mission simulation. I need an observer, someone who won't look like a soldier, but like a human being. You'll come with us." There was silence in the room. No one said, "But she doesn't have training." No one laughed. Lena didn't have to say a word. She nodded. She left the room trembling, but with fire in her eyes. She wasn't part of the elite yet, but now she was on the map, not as a poor girl, but as a mind that had something to say. And at that moment, although she did not know it yet, the true mission of her life began. The next day, Lena stood in line, not among the cleaners, but alongside real soldiers. She wore no bulletproof vest or personalized uniform with her name. She had only an old training suit, a little too big, a belt with a plastic holster attached to it, and a cap someone had lent her at the last minute. But it wasn't the outfit that attracted attention. As Major Cossack dismissed the unit, he noticed that Lena was staring at him. She was analyzing maps, memorizing codes, asking questions that even seasoned recruits recognized as pertinent. In the helicopter that took them to the simulation area, Lena sat in the back, next to the medic. Instead of looking around with fascination like someone flying a military aircraft for the first time, she stared at the display, assessing weather data and the layout of the terrain. "Do you understand all this?" asked the young sergeant sitting next to me. "Not everything yet," she replied quietly, "but I know where the weak points might be." They landed in the forest. The task, to conduct a simulated rescue operation with a hidden threat. The team was led by Lieutenant Wojtek, known for not tolerating incompetence, and it was he who looked at Lena with dislike. "Don't interfere. Watch and learn, but don't get in anyone's way," he muttered. No one knew it wasn't Lena who would need help. It was them, because in the forest, beyond the theory and exercises, chaos began that they had not foreseen. And Lena, a poor girl without a uniform, was the only person who had not come here to show off. She had come to survive and to save them. As they began their march through the dense forest, each member of the team took their place according to a previously established formation. Lena, although treated as an extra, walked behind, carefully observing every step, every tree, every sound. She began dividing the route into sections. She silently counted the time it took her to get between checkpoints. She did something no one else did. She analyzed the rhythm, catching when something started to go wrong. Halfway through the route, the team came across a fake mine, a training element. One of the soldiers, staring at the drone pilot, almost stepped on it. Lena screamed. "Ha ha ha! Stop! Don't move!" Everyone froze. The young soldier stopped just before the trigger. Lieutenant Wojtek was furious. "You're supposed to speak when you're asked," he hissed. "That was a test trap. If you hadn't panicked, he would have gotten through safely." But Lena didn't answer. She leaned down and gently lifted the stick, pointing to the second cable, barely visible, hidden under the moss. It wasn't a dummy. That element wasn't marked in the schematic. It was an emergency test. Someone activated it outside of protocol. Wojtek fell silent. The soldiers looked at each other with concern. After a moment, a distorted voice of command was heard on the radio. "Change of plan. Simulation conditions aborted. Contact established with unidentified group in southern sector. Procedure Alpha 3, ready for evacuation." Lena looked at the map. "We're closer to the sector than any other group," she said. "If they're really there, we're the target." No one answered. For a moment the forest was silent, as if the land itself were listening, and that was when Lena, poor girl, ignored, humiliated, took command. Without asking, she just started acting. It was like a scene from a movie. The same soldiers who had called her the company mascot just that morning now stared at her in disbelief as she pulled a map of the area from her pocket and quickly mapped out a new evacuation route. But it wasn't the map that impressed them. It was her voice. Calm, confident, devoid of panic. "The southern sector is a trap," she said, pointing west. "If we move there, we'll be surrounded on 3 sides. But here," she pointed to a path through an old trench line, "there's a narrow passage with a chance of concealment. We'll have to move without using radio, just gestures and light signals." Lieutenant Wojtek wanted to protest, but something appeared in his eyes that he hadn't had before, a shadow of respect. He realized that he wasn't the only one listening to Lena. The other soldiers fell silent, waiting for her next words. "Each of us will take responsibility for one partner. Synchronized movement. We leave no one behind. This is not a test. This is no longer training. Someone is really waiting for us there," she added, glancing at the thickening clouds over the forest. When they set off, Lena led. With every minute, with every step, her authority grew, not because of her rank, but because in a moment of crisis, only she could see clearly, only she kept her cool. She was like a silent compass that everyone suddenly noticed when they lost their way. As they passed through the trenches, Lena suddenly stopped. She made a hand sign. "Silence! Get down!" In the thicket of leaves just ahead of them, she saw a light, an alien reconnaissance drone. Wojtek looked at her. She nodded, then in one fluid movement moved behind cover and drew her field knife. She performed a maneuver that was not part of standard training, something only someone who had read more than the regulations could know. After a second, the drone fell silently to the ground. The forest was quiet again, but it was no longer the silence of fear. It was a silence of respect. As the group slowly made their way through the area under the cover of night, everyone's senses were strained to their limits. Every rustle, every shadow could herald danger. But Lena didn't just walk. She anticipated, as if she knew the terrain better than her commanders. She stopped every few steps, crouched, touched the ground. Her hand moved over roots, over debris, over tracks invisible to others. She was like an animal in its natural environment, quiet, sensitive, unerring. She knew the terrain not from maps but from instinct, as if she had been here before, or maybe had been, but no one dared to ask. Not now. "There's a marshy area ahead. If we go straight, we'll get stuck," she said, as if reciting facts, not conjecture. Lieutenant Wojtek was silent again. Until now, he had been the one giving the orders, but now he was walking a step behind her. He, in his uniform with 3 stripes. She, in old shoes, in trousers that until recently had been used by her to clean the canteen. But she was the one who saw. She was the one who led. At one point, one of the soldiers, a young, confident boy, stumbled and fell. His weapon fell from his hands, and the sound of metal echoed through the forest. Lena quickly silenced him and placed her hand on his chest. Shh! Don't breathe through your mouth, only through your nose. Slowly. She spoke quietly but forcefully. There, on the left, someone's approaching. The entire group held their breath. And then the footsteps appeared. They were not alone. Footsteps were approaching, heavy, decisive, inhuman. Muffled conversations could be heard from a distance, a foreign language, hard, unknown to most. Lena raised her hand, a sign of immobility. The whole group clung to the ground. The tension was at its peak. The air smelled of wet earth and sweat. Lena stared ahead, unblinking. Her eyes, pale blue as if from another world, gave no fear, only focus, only strategy. The alien patrol passed them only 10 meters away. One of the men stopped, looked at the place where Lena was hiding. He approached and sneezed. He turned away, cursed, and walked away. When their footsteps disappeared in the distance, Lena was the first to rise. She didn't wait for questions. She showed the way. Now, silently. Lieutenant Wojtek approached her. He wanted to say something, maybe thank her, maybe apologize. But he didn't have time. Lena was already a few steps ahead of him. Her movements were fluid, as if she had been learning them her whole life. But then again, she wasn't a soldier. She wasn't even a cadet. And yet, everyone followed her. There was no more doubt. They no longer had to choose a leader. He was there in front of them, in the body of the weak girl who now kept them alive. And although no one said it out loud, deep down they all felt the same. If we are to return, it will only be with her. When they were far enough away from the patrol, Lena stopped in a spot where the ground was slightly damp and the trees provided natural cover. She did a quick reconnaissance, kneeling, examining the tracks, checking the wind direction. Her breathing was even, her face focused but calm, as if she were completely at home. Lieutenant Wojtek wanted to butt in again, suggest a different route, but his voice caught in his throat. Because she looked through something more than her eyes. She felt the terrain. She had instinct. Break. 10 minutes, she said quietly, without asking anyone for permission. None of the soldiers protested. In the silence that fell, one of the boys began to tremble. He had a wound on his arm, until then hidden under his jacket. Blood seeped through the material. He couldn't take it anymore. He sighed quietly in pain. Lena approached without a word, pulled an old piece of cloth from her backpack, a rag she had used to clean floors. She soaked it gently in water and began cleaning the wound. I don't have any sterile dressings, but this will be enough to keep you from passing out before I get back. Just hold on, she said, as if she'd been doing this her whole life. This wasn't Lena from the kitchen. This wasn't the girl with the mop. This was the woman who made decisions when others were silent. And then Wojtek asked, "How do you know all this?" Lena looked at him with a hint of a smile. "Because I was a recruit once, too. Only no one wanted to see me. They made the return journey without words. Every step was calculated, every sound controlled." Lena walked ahead, followed by a column of those who a few days ago had laughed at her behind her back. Now they walked with their heads bowed, silently, with a respect that needed no words. The sunrise lit up the treetops as they passed the last checkpoint. The guards looked on in surprise, because no one believed they would return, and certainly not with that poor girl. The base commander emerged from the headquarters building, frowned at their condition. Torn clothes, mud on their faces, blood on their sleeves, and Lena, in the lead. Straight, with her arms raised proudly, as if she was carrying not only herself, but the entire group. "Report," he asked sternly. Wojtek took a step forward. He opened his mouth, but looked at Lena again. He stepped back. "I wasn't in charge," he said. "She was." A murmur passed through the crowd. The commander looked at her in disbelief. "Ty?" Lena nodded. And then, for the first time, she went to the map hanging on the wall. She pointed out the route. "There was an ambush here. This is marshy ground. And here we would have lost men if we had gone straight." Silence. And then one of the officers nodded slowly. "That weak girl saved more than all of us." The briefing room was full. The soldiers sat up straight, privates and officers in a single line, but they were all waiting for her. Lena stood in the back, still in the same work uniform, not entirely clean, with a torn sleeve and traces of mud on the knees. She held the beret in her hands, as if she still didn't know if she had the right to wear it. The commander's voice broke the silence. Today's ceremony was supposed to be a formality, but something happened that none of us expected. He looked at Lena. "We have a person among us whom we ignored. We called her weak, invisible. But she showed the greatest courage, instinct, and leadership. In his hands he held a medal, gold, heavy. A medal for courage in special operations. Only those who saved the lives of others by risking their own were entitled to it. Lena Kowalska, please come here." The air thickened. Lena took a step forward. Someone in the front row, the same one who had laughed at her a few weeks earlier, bowed his head. Shame needed no words. The commander pinned the medal to her chest. "Today, the entire battalion pays tribute to the one no one noticed, but it was she who saved us." The applause didn't come right away. First there was silence, thick, emotional, on the verge of tears. Then one clap, another, and suddenly the entire room exploded with applause, not out of compulsion, out of respect, out of appreciation. Lena wasn't crying, but her lips trembled slightly. She looked at the ceiling for a moment, as if searching for someone. Maybe her father, maybe her mother, maybe just her past self, that girl with the mop and the dream that someone would notice her someday. And then she said quietly, only to herself, "You don't have to be strong to change something. You just have to stop being afraid." The end. But for Lena, it was just the beginning.